I would argue strongly that we need to double down on this. We actually need to be doing more and trying to keep the jobs we have, and if not, grow them.
Sometimes I think about the ZEV mandate a bit like the yellow brick road, in the sense that it Hi, my name is Gurjeet. I'm CEO at Octopus Electric Vehicles.
Hi, I'm James Court and I'm Public Policy Director. Why are we here, G?
To explain the ZEV mandate as though you were talking about it to your friends down the pub. We've got these amazing props, a buzzer, and a non-swearing swear jar, because actually the ZEV mandate should just be really simple. If either of us says any words that you don't normally say down the pub, we're gonna have to put money in here. So James, what is the ZEV mandate?
So the ZEV mandate is the UK's policy on setting a timeline and a policy on how we're going to stop selling petrol and diesel cars. Other countries have them. China, India, California and 13 other states and the EU all have a similar policy. It means that when we're going to stop selling new petrol and diesel cars, and for us that means 2035. So what does that mean? That means that every year there is a target that OEMs have to try and hit.
What's an OEM, James?
OEM is a car manufacturer, original equipment manufacturer.
And give us some examples.
VW, and then we've got other car companies that people may not have heard of, like Geely and Chery and BYD. So what has it achieved to date? Well, as of last month now, over 27% of all new cars in the UK were purely BEV.
You're not doing very well at this, James.
Battery electric vehicle.
Thank you. But I thought the target was 33% for this year.
So 33% is the headline target. But within that, there are also lots of flexibilities. So you can bank against future years, borrow against future years, and you can also do CO2 credits. It's basically a bunch of loopholes that car makers got because not all of them were as progressed as each other. So it's given them a couple of years breathing space.
And how did the government come up with these flexibilities? Was it in isolation or in consultation with the car companies?
Well, it started off that it was supposed to be for a couple of years, and then last year we got another extension and a deepening of these flexibilities. So it was supposed to be 2026, everything was supposed to stand on their own 2 feet. It's now gone into 2028, and it looks like they're going to need even more time for some of the people that are still struggling.
But for the sake of right here, right now, from what you're saying, it sounds like we're actually meeting the ZEV mandate. Is that right?
Not a single car maker has had to pay a fine so far, and every single year the ZEV mandate has been hit by the industry as a whole. This year we have got to the effective target, which is just over 25%. We've managed to get to that already, and we're only halfway through the year.
Yeah.
They've already hit their ZEV mandate target.
And that should be something to celebrate, right?
You would think so. I'm celebrating.
Yeah, I think it's great news.
This is my happy face.
From a standing start to get to over a quarter of new cars to be electric, I think it's something that we should definitely be celebrating.
It's insane to think that in 2016, when we started to talk about a ZEV mandate, when we started to talk about these things, we still weren't sure whether it was going to be hydrogen or batteries that were going to do this. We really have gone from like nothing in 2016 to over 1 in 4 cars being sold a battery electric. It's incredible.
Yeah, and if you compare that to countries like America, actually, which a lot of people think is at the forefront of car manufacturing and car innovation, obviously given Henry Ford and the history, it's incredible to see that in America, I think the statistics are wildly different, right? It's something in the UK today, whilst we have a third of our cars are battery electric, their comparative proportion is about 6%. It's definitely under 10%, I think.
Yeah, and California has had policies for a long time. The problem is, obviously, they haven't had the policy certainty that we have. We've had, for the last decade, all political parties, all major political parties agreeing on this. We've had this confidence and this certainty. The ZEV mandate was a Conservative policy. It was taken over by Labour. Hasn't been a controversial policy, and that's given companies and it's given car makers and consumers this confidence that this is going to happen. So it shows that sort of steady and predictable policy has actually made all of this possible.
I guess, though, that in all the customers that have leased a car from us, and we've got a fleet of over 50,000 cars in the UK, and our first cars are in Germany, which is great. But of all of those customers, none of them have said to us that the ZEV mandate is the reason that they've leased a car from us. And I think whilst that's true, and bear with me here, but sometimes I think about the ZEV mandate a bit like the yellow brick road, in the sense that it that's not swearing,
No.
or like a button.
No, you're right. Okay, where's the tenuous analogy jar?
No, I think it's good. Okay, you give me a better one then.
Okay.
I sometimes like to think of the ZEV mandate as the yellow brick road, in the sense that it has been paving the way forward in order to give people confidence. All of those small micro signs that people have been seeing and feeling and thinking, maybe now's the right time, a lot of those are due to the ZEV mandate, right? If you look at it, we've already got over 120,000 chargers installed in the UK, which is more than the number of petrol stations we have. That really is because the ZEV mandate has given investors the confidence to put billions of pounds, billions, into charging infrastructure up and down the UK.
Because there was always that chicken and egg that I don't want an EV because there aren't enough chargers. And
Yeah.
there weren't going to be chargers because we didn't have any EVs we were going to have.
You see them more, you see them on your street and your lampposts at motorway service stations, in the supermarket. And all of that really is in large part because of the ZEV mandate and the confidence it's given. In addition, you know, we do have 2 million EVs on the road today. And the reason they're getting more popular is because manufacturers have been looking at the signals from governments and saying, okay, there's long-term support for these products here. Let's innovate, let's create a broader range of cars and actually serve more categories of different types of customers that want different types of cars. And as we've seen that explode, we've seen more customers have the confidence to take on an EV themselves.
And I think that's like, the ZEV mandate was always about the consumers and having confidence and people thinking that this is always going to happen, and some of the businesses and making sure that they've got the confidence. It was also a carbon and climate policy. Like, land transport is the biggest single emitting pollutant that we have in the UK. And without the ZEV mandate, without the transition to EVs, there's nothing we can do that's going to fill that place if we're going to hit some of our climate targets. But I think the thing that is becoming more and more important, and what was always part of this, is that there's a manufacturing need to do this. And I think that's only increased. Like, we can see that China are years ahead of us. But we actually had a head start on this. We had the Nissan Leaf, the first mass-produced EV car was built in the UK. And I always thought that this was like, whilst the numbers were still small, we need to get our OEMs, we need to get our car makers in the UK to transition as quickly as possible. Because if we keep on building petrol cars, we're going to be left behind. We're going to lose those jobs. So it was trying to get car manufacturers to make that switch as early as possible, because otherwise we might not have any car makers left in the country.
But from manufacturing perspective, we also have some good news stories, right? So we've had Tata, which is an Indian conglomerate, invest £4 billion into the construction of a battery factory in Somerset with their battery company Agritus, which will be in partnership with JLR as they begin to produce EVs here in the UK.
Oh,
JLR. JLR is our beloved manufacturer, Jaguar Land Rover, all of those classic cars that you see in the UK. That car company is JLR. I think you said that you'd be wearing a Union Jack dress and dancing at the time of their launch of their
when they
EV.
released their Range Rover, I'm guessing my Jerry Halliwell Union Jack dress and dancing all over it. That is a promise.
So I think that's a promise. More recently, we've seen Chery, a Chinese car manufacturer, talk about taking some of the capacity on at Nissan Sunderland.
What does that mean?
Basically, I mean that Chery is talking about making cars at Sunderland as well as Nissan.
So Chery coming in is quite exciting. And I think for like politicians and people of a certain age, Japanese companies coming in the early 80s was revolutionary to that. We were still building
totally.
like Leyland trucks, like all of this stuff. And then suddenly we had the Japanese business culture and all of their sort of just-in-time technologies. Just-in-time technologies, the way we used to do things was really inefficient, and they brought in ways of doing things that were really quite optimal. And that was a break from 1970s sort of Britain. I think
the tip jar still... Oh, no, not the tip jar. It's not a tip jar.
I see like the Chinese companies coming in, especially if it's going to be in like joint ventures. I thought you were going to buzz joint ventures. Glad you didn't.
Okay.
When Chinese companies join up with other maybe European and UK companies, so we can actually try and do things that we do well and that they do well, and it can try and bring in a whole new wave of investment into the UK and the car manufacturing.
So James, one of the things we do here, and it's reasonable that people have concerns about this, is that we might see job losses if we continue the ZEV mandate at its current pace.
So I think when it comes to job losses, I would look at it more that if we do nothing, there is no mass market for petrol cars come 2035. We export to markets that have a similar ZEV target. If we do nothing, our car jobs are going to leave. I would argue strongly that we need to double down on this. We actually need to be doing more and trying to keep the jobs we have, and if not, grow them. And the only way we're going to do that is if we get better at EVs, if we have strong EV policy, and if we get that investment and the policy certainty that we need.
Generally, in many sectors, in many ways, our economy is going through quite huge changes, right, in terms of the job market, whether it's AI, any other forms of automation, manufacturing. I think the truth is, through all of these, is that there is opportunity and there is real growth there, both for jobs as well as the economy. And the secret is to try and find where those two things marry. And I think with electric vehicle technology, with battery technology and manufacturing, that is a real area where we can get in and be a world leader in what we do in the UK.
It's like being Kodak, but having 10 years.
I feel like you might need to give everyone a lesson on Kodak, James, and put money in the jar.
Problem is, even I'm not old enough for Kodak, but Kodak were the biggest company when it came to cameras and film. And that just disappeared, and it disappeared really quickly. I think my point is that we know that EVs are a better technology. We know what the future is going to be on this. These car companies and governments have this 10-year foresight, and we need to be, we have more foresight than we did have for technologies like Kodak or Blockbuster. The transition is happening quickly, but it's not happening as quickly, and it is more predictable than those technologies.
Yeah, because I guess even without the ZEV mandate, the truth is that EVs are going to be coming to the UK in volume with greater numbers of options, a broader number of price points. And so actually, in the future, we will see people continue to buy EVs in volumes. And we have an opportunity now to embrace that and be a leader in manufacturing and innovation in the space in the UK, or not.
For all the good reasons to do ZEV mandate, climate's still one of the primary ones.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think you only have to look around at what's going on in Europe and the UK in particular at the moment with all the wildfires and the acres and acres of devastation. My in-laws actually live around the corner from Dunwich in Suffolk, and we were really worried when those fires occurred, and it got up to the point where it was more than the equivalent of 200 football pitches on fire. Think of all the devastation to local wildlife, to the ecosystem there, but also just to people's security and way of living. I think the more that we look into this, we're going to be increasingly unable to sustain life in the way that we have. And really now the biggest target is reducing those out of road transport. And there's been research done by the CCC,
The CCC?
Climate Change Committee.
C.
By moving to EVs and reducing petrol and diesel cars on the road, actually we will have a disproportionately significant impact on reducing emissions from road transport in the UK. And that's going to be really critical to start to address some of the broader climate changes that we're seeing and frankly, the threats to the way that we live our lives today.
I think a lot of people don't realise that the ZEV mandate is the biggest carbon abatement policy the UK has. It's the one that counts for the most. Carbon abatement. Policies that help take carbon out of our manufacturing, help take carbon out of our processes. It's the thing that reduces our carbon.
Oh, but James, unfortunately,
I'm down to one.
Climate abatement policy means that I'm the winner.
The transition to EVs are happening. EVs are going to be the technology of the future. What the ZEV mandate helps us do is set that policy. It gives us certainty, and it means that we can try and protect jobs. It means that we can try and get this investment. We can try and do this in the most orderly way, and also making sure that we come out winners of this transition rather than waiting and having it done to us.